McTherman.
That bill is out, and that brings us to item number 9, SB 287.
Thank you. SB 287 is a bill modeled after an ordinance that was passed when I was a member of the San Diego City Council, which would require most newly constructed buildings after January 2017 to have an automated external defibrillator or AED device. I want to accept the amendments on page 8 of the analysis. This year, over 350,000 Americans are expected to suffer from sudden cardiac arrest. 9 out of 10 will not survive. Their survival rate will depend on the ability to get to help. An AED device has been proven to increase a victim's survivability because it gets them to an automatic, much quicker aid. Timing matters, as many of you know that know a little bit about heart attacks. Receiving a shock from an AED within the first 4 to 6 minutes can increase the likelihood of survival by as much as 70%. It makes you wonder why we're not doing more in this society when heart attack, heart failure, and sudden cardiac arrest are one of the leading causes of death in this country. According to the Red Cross, increasing training and access to an AED can save as many as 50,000 lives per year. Nothing that we can do really will have more of an impact at saving a life than doing what we can to make our facilities, our buildings, our places where people congregate safer, and providing a very affordable device as an AED. They're getting more affordable every year. I think this bill will even help reduce the price, in that there will be more of a demand for AEDs, and thereby making them more affordable. Requiring AED devices in buildings with large occupancy is that strategy, helping to ensure that when people congregate in areas where there are large amounts of people, having the appropriate devices accessible to them will be instrumental in helping to save those lives. We brought an AED device, Mr. Chairman, for a demonstration, if you would like to see that.
No, we have 19 bills to hear today, and unless a member would like specifically a demonstration, I think we'll forego that.
Okay, that's we want to show how easy it is to use. We have lots. I think we've peeled off our support. We've worked with opponents on this bill to address their concerns, and I think at this time there's no opposition. But we'll hear from some of our supporters and from some of the people that we worked with to ensure that this program can obtain all the buy-in of everyone involved that's affected by it.
Thank you. First witness, please.
Johan Claes, representing Paramedics Plus, Alameda County's 911 EMS provider. We support this bill. We actually donate a lot of these to facilities throughout Alameda County. In years ahead, they will be very common in people's homes.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Sean Henschel here on support on behalf of American Medical Response, California's largest provider of 911 emergency ambulance services. We want to thank the author for his leadership on this issue. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Kula Koenig on behalf of the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, in support of this bill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any opposition? Seeing no opposition, I'll bring it back to the committee. Questions, comments? So we do have a motion. We do have a second, and that is the motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. Mr. Wagner.
Real quick, got to ask. Other than the Appropriations Committee, what is the reason we don't apply this to government buildings?
It is applied to government buildings. The bill was amended to apply to state buildings that are built.
Oh, okay.
Respectively.
Well,
yeah.
Wise move. Thank you.
And the state was also working on site locating them in high occupancy buildings in the past as well.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions, Senator, you may close.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your support and respectfully ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Wagner, aye. Alejo? Chow? Chow, aye. Chu? Chu, aye. Gallagher? Garcia? Garcia, aye. Weber? Weber, aye. Mainshine? Mainshine, aye. Thurman?
That bill is out. That moves us to item number 10, SB 328.
Thank you. That's
And you're testing how rugged that item is.
see. All you have to do is drop it, and it starts working. It's operating now. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
SB 328 is a tenant notification bill. This bill also had some opposition that has now removed their opposition. We've been able to work with all the stakeholders related to this bill to ensure that tenants are notified when pesticides are applied in their homes, that there is a reasonable noticing process. We took this bill because of several health concerns that have been raised by the application of pesticides in homes. Poison Control Centers reported more than 84,000 incidents of pesticide exposure in homes. 42% of these involve children who are more susceptible to exposure and developing illness as a result. This bill is a public health measure that will also protect children, and I ask for your support for this bill.
Thank you. First witness, please.
Kerry Simpson. I'm the Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Rancho Cordova, and I'm here on behalf of the California Association of Code Enforcement Officers. My staff do inspections in rental apartments, and we call out pest infestations, and it is very sad to see that we are getting landlords to do the right thing by eradicating pests. But to see the concerns on mothers and children's faces when there's application after application of pesticides and they have no idea what's being sprayed. So we really appreciate and hope that you do support this bill. I believe it is a great bill, and I think that the residents have a right to know what's being sprayed on their premises. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
John Lovell, California College and University Police Chiefs Association, in support.
Thank you. Anyone else in support?
Hello, Brandon Kitagawa with Regional Asthma Management and Prevention. We're one of the co-sponsors of the bill. We've worked with Senator Hueso and the Code Enforcement Association for the last 3 years on pest infestation issues. And we, by requiring landlords to provide tenants notice, with advance notice about pesticides they use on the property, similar to notification already required by licensed pest control operators, we close a loophole that ensures that tenants are aware of what pesticides are being used, independent of who's applying it. So we respectfully asked your vote to close this loophole.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? If you could just... All right. Seeing none, opposition.
Carrie Mazzoni for the Educational Community for Homeowners. We formerly had an opposed unless amended position on the bill. We are pleased to say we will be removing that, and we thank the author for his work on the issues related to common interest developments.
Thank you.
Brian Augusta on behalf of the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, in support.
Thank you. Anyone else in support?
Good morning. Ruthie Goldcorn, Californians for Disability Rights, Chair of the Disabilities Caucus for the Democratic Party. On behalf of persons with disabilities, this is extremely important, and I appreciate the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anya Lawler on behalf of Western Center on Law and Poverty, in support.
Anyone else in support? Is there any opposition? Come on down. And Senator, there are some amendments. Are you taking the amendments?
Yes, I am.
Amendments? Thank you.
Good morning. Eitan Zaitsu here on behalf of the Apartment Association, California 7 Cities, East Bay Rental Housing Association, NorCal Rental Property Association, North Valley Property Association, and Apartment Association of Orange County. We remove our opposition. We'd like to thank the author and his staff for working with us to find that middle ground that allows tenants to be notified when pesticides are applied, but also not act as a barrier to landlords needing to address serious problems, especially when tenants request them. So we thank the author again, and we remove our opposition.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Steve Carlson, Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, Santa Barbara Rental Property Association, pretty much the same thing. We really appreciate the author and particularly his staff for working very closely with us. We represent a lot of small property owners and for whom this may seem pretty simple, but it gets pretty complicated when you're trying to deal directly with the needs of your tenants. But again, with the amendments that are taken, we remove our opposition, and we appreciate the authors working with us.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition or removing opposition?
Jennifer Wada, on behalf of the California Association of Community Managers, happy to remove our opposition and would like to thank the author for working with us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. Questions, comments from committee members? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. We still need a motion. Motion and a second. The motion is due pass as amended. Call the roll, please.
Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner? Aye. Wagner, aye. Alejo? Alejo, aye. Chow? Aye. Chow, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Gallagher? Aye. Gallagher, aye. Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Weber? Mainshine? Mainshine, aye. Thurmond.
That bill is out. Thank you, Senator. And looks like we're going to move to Mr. Block, Senator Block, item number 6, SB 235.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the chair and the committee staff for all the work on this bill. I think it's a better bill than it's been. I think we've removed all opposition at this point. I'm happy to accept all of the amendments in the committee analysis. SB 235 amends California's small dollar loan pilot program to increase the availability of responsible credit building loans. The bill allows finders who are licensed as financial service providers to do 3 things for pilot program lenders that finders are not currently authorized to do. One is disperse loan funds to borrowers. Second is to accept loan payments from borrowers. And finally, to provide loan-related disclosure documents to the borrowers. SB 235 also gives pilot program lenders more flexibility than is allowed under the current law to negotiate compensation agreements with their finders. By amending California's small dollar loan pilot program, what we're trying to do here is make it easier for low-income borrowers to obtain responsible loans in amounts between $300 and $2,500. At present, it's easy for borrowers to get payday loans in amounts under $300, and it's easy for them to get high-interest rate installment loans in amounts greater than $2,500. But it's currently very difficult for borrowers who need access to credit between $300 and $2,500 to get good loans at affordable rates. SB 235 will change that. The bill removes bureaucratic hurdles that have discouraged the use of finders by lenders who are approved to participate in California's small dollar loan pilot program. Licensed financial service providers who may take advantage of this bill include banks, finance lenders, money transmitters, insurance agents and brokers, and CPAs. SB 235 is sponsored by InSeek Corporation, supported by the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, Listo, Check Center, LendUp, and UTAC Software. There's been bipartisan support for this bill with no votes either in the Senate or in Assembly banking. I have witnesses here to testify in support and answer any questions.
Thank you, and you do enjoy support. So your first witness, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is James Gutierrez. I'm the CEO of InSeek. We're a pilot program lender that is using finders as part of our business model. Prior to that, I founded Progreso Financiero, which is a large lender to the Latino community. We're proud to sponsor SB 235, and I want to thank the chair and staff of the committee for all your help in helping us find a resolution to any remaining issues and all your hard work. InSeek offers responsible small dollar loans through the use of finders. We brought technology and innovation into the market to help lower costs of originating loans to these borrowers and increasing access to capital to lower income individuals. We ask for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Ulloa. I'm the co-founder of Listo. Listo is a new retail concept based in East San Jose that offers responsible credit building consumer loans, as well as life-changing financial services to low and moderate income Latino community members in a highly transparent and aspirational way. We are proud to support SB 235, and we'd like to extend a special thanks to Chairman Stone, his staff, and consumer advocate groups for their time and their assistance with this measure. SB 235 will go a long way toward allowing us and other finders to bring responsible, affordable loans to more deserving California borrowers. We respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, is there any opposition?
And members, Suzanne Martinell with Consumers Union. We are pleased to confirm that we have removed our opposition to the bill. We really appreciate the committee's time in working on finding a compromise language around finder compensation. We now feel that there are clear and enforceable standards here, and so we thank again the author and the staff and the sponsors for working with us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Paul Leonard, California Director of the Center for Responsible Lending. Similar to my colleague from Consumers Union, we have worked hard with the author and with various committees along the way, and we appreciate your efforts, and we are happy to remove our opposition.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition or removing opposition? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. Mr. Chu. Thank you. We do have a motion, and that motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the author and the sponsors of the bill for really helping to provide an innovative way of using technology and innovation to reduce the costs of providing access to capital, particularly for low-income borrowers, as a good alternative to payday lending, which I've certainly seen in our city, and I think many of us have seen around the state, have been incredibly challenging. I also want to thank all of you for your work with the consumer organizations to get to a good place where we are today. I'm proud to be a co-author of this, and again, happy to move this forward along with Mr. Alejo.
Thank you. Mr. Alejo.
Just wanted to also add on, I think many of us realize that a lot of low-income communities lack access to capital, and I think from the consumer point of view, it's better when they have a wide range of options rather than just payday loans or very limited options. I think California is much better by providing a wide range of options for folks who otherwise wouldn't have that access for whatever reasons they need to use it, so I'm proud to support it as well.
Any other questions, comments? Senator, you may close.
Just like to thank Mr. Chu and Mr. Alejo and the chair for all of your work on this, and ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner. Aye. Wagner, aye. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Chow. Chu. Aye. Chu, aye. Gallagher. Aye. Gallagher, aye. Garcia. Aye. Garcia, aye. Weber. Aye. Weber, aye. Mainshine. Aye. Mainshine, aye. Thurman.
That bill is out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That looks like Senator Glazer. Item number 14, SB 539. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Stone and members. I'd like to first start by accepting the amendments that are outlined on page 7 of the analysis. These amendments serve to clarify that the bill does not apply to cities or other buildings which share the name of the city in which they're situated. And 2, they clarify that the bill only applies to names of elected leaders and senior military officers of the Confederacy. I want to also point out that I received another letter of support that came in late. I'd like to add it to the record. It's the Los Angeles Urban Policy Roundtable, and I have copies for the members of the committee. Our public buildings should be named for people of great accomplishment who are role models of high morals and principles. Unfortunately, some public places in California still honor Confederate leaders who attempted to break America in two to protect their right to enslave people. I don't want to erase their names from our history books. I just don't want our children looking up to people who fought to preserve a system that treated human beings as cattle. This is the basis for my legislation, SB 539, the Frederick Douglass Liberty Act, which seeks to remove the names of elected and military leaders of the Confederacy from all public places, including parks, buildings, roadways, and schools. Frederick Douglass was an escaped slave who became a truly historic figure in his activism against slavery. The murders of 9 black churchgoers in South Carolina a few weeks ago stunned all of us. I asked whether there were any constructive steps we can undertake in California to discourage any embrace of the racist values of the Confederacy. I was surprised to learn that we had a couple schools here in California named for Confederate General Robert E. Lee. I saw the names on our streets that have been named for Confederate leaders, and had also heard from the Daughters of the Confederacy that they had placed memorial plaques in honor of Confederate President Jefferson Davis in California. My legislation is not an answer to systemic racism that does permeate American society in far too many places. It does nothing to fund programs to improve racial tolerance and understanding. It simply shines a light on some overlooked examples here in California of where we are celebrating traitorous leaders, even those who led what would be considered honorable lives before or after the Civil War. I'm pleased to have with me the Mayor of Pittsburgh, Pete Longmire, who would like to say a few words in support of the bill.
Thank you. Your first witness, please. There's a button by the mic. There you go.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, distinguished members. My name is Pete Longmire. I am the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. I am also a retired police officer from the same city, Pittsburgh, California. As we all know, there was a tragic killing of 9 parishioners in southern and South Carolina, and which is a painful reminder to me on many different levels, both social and law enforcement. When I learned that there was a schools named after Confederate generals, that brought a bitter taste in my mouth and was really, really painful. In California, the namings of roads and structures are generally reserved for people who provide noble service to the various communities. My community and other communities have had to withstand the celebration of these Confederate leaders throughout the South for many generations to come. This should not occur in the great state of California. My family roots hail from the first 7 of the 11 Confederate states: South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. I believe that it is essential that we stand up and put a stop to the commemorating those who fought so hard to retain the institution of oppression and slavery. If you fail to act on this bill, our citizens will be continued to live with and face the horrible wallpapers of the past. I can't say enough about this bill. As I said, from a personal and a law enforcement perspective, I've had to deal with similar issues that involve the Confederate flag as a law enforcement officer. So I urge that we move this bill forward. Thank you all for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Seeing none, is there any opposition? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the committee. Senator, I think you have a very laudable goal, but as we've figured out, as we've worked through this, and I think the mayor of Fort Bragg would agree, it's a complex question as we seek to untangle the history and the symbols that represent hatred in our community, and symbols and individuals that persist with that notion of racism and hatred. So I appreciate that you brought this forward. And the recommended motion is do pass as amended, and this bill will then go to appropriations. Mr. Gallagher.
I guess one of the concerns is that why not leave this to local jurisdictions who, if they find that there is a public building or a street name that is offensive to the community sensibilities, can then go and change that at the local level? Why are we doing this at the state level?
That's a good question, and I certainly share your philosophical views about local control. And I guess I would say this. We've given them, 50, 60, 70 years to work on that, and yet we still see these examples in our state. So I think we've given them that opportunity to do the right thing locally, and I do support that as a fundamental goal. But in this case, it hasn't happened. So I think that a little nudge from us is probably what's necessary to to deal with the remainders of these examples, these poor examples that we do see in our state.
And then I guess the other concern I have is the potential slippery slope here. I think you brought it up. I mean, Robert E. Lee, probably the best example of a complex figure. You know, somebody who was the general of the Confederacy, but later after the Civil War, you know, declared in several instances that he abhorred slavery, that he was glad that it was ended. You know, a complex figure. So, you know, we have several other instances of those. One that comes to mind is Earl Warren, governor of the state of California, but played a pretty pivotal role in Japanese internment. Do we remove his name from all public buildings because of his role in that? That's my concern, is that we're going down this road. What else might we do because of the acts of what a person did during a career and during a time, a context that we all agree now in modern society is completely reprehensible and abhorrent to our sensibilities, but doesn't necessarily take into account the whole of that person.
Assemblyman, I think that you can probably look to many people who have committed great horrors in the world and find some examples where you might say they were a good family man. They took care of their staff in a kind way. They were generous to charity. And so in each of these cases, I think we have to understand the magnitude of what we're analyzing and examining. And in the case of the Confederate War, look at what was at stake. The future of our country, the ability of states to enslave people against their will, and I think at that level, and given the actual effects of that conflict, 650,000 Americans killed. I'm not going to excuse bad behavior in other circumstances with anything that I say, but I do think that in this case, the consequences were high, the questions of morality and human dignity were great, and in that context and in that consequence, I think certainly we want that understanding to be in our history books and displayed in our museums, those choices, those consequences, those people. But now we're talking about when you walk into a school and you look up and you see who's on the marquee, who you're going to honor, who you're going to put in a place of respect in our state. And I think that in this case for me and with this legislation, I think it justifies the state preemption and the state declaration of what we think was right and wrong and how we want to see ourselves today as Californians.
Mr. Alejo.
Thank you. I always believe that place names and public places and symbols are very important. But I think that a few weeks ago, when we heard the news of what happened with these 9 murdered community members and churchgoers, I think we were all outraged and upset that anyone would be murdered and targeted for the color of their skin. But then, and here we were living in 2015, but was more appalling was that there was state-sanctioned efforts to keep that Confederate battle flag flying above the state capitol. It was unbelievable that was still taking place in 2015. And anyone who looks back at that history, when that Confederate flag was put up, I believe in 1962, was in defiance to the civil rights movement, in defiance to integration, in defiance to the implementation of Brown versus Board of Education. But yet decades later, those symbols of racism were still flying above a state capitol. Unbelievable, and unbelievable but an important lesson for our young people, that those symbols matter, those place names matter. But yet we were critical of South Carolina, but in California we have to look within and said, what are we also doing? Where are those Confederate names and symbols that are still up within our own state, and it's never too late to do the right thing and make those changes. Frederick Douglass himself coined that phrase, without struggle, there's no progress. And here we are in 2015, able to look at these important names and make some changes that are long overdue. These were vestiges and symbols of the past, a period that was very painful in American history. But there's no reason why, in this day and age, this state legislature cannot act to do the right thing for our future generations. And I'm very proud to co-author and support this bill.
Mr. Wagner.
Well, I will begin by sharing my friend from Watsonville's absolute outrage, as did everybody in this room, I am sure, to the horrific murders in over a couple of weeks ago. It's a non sequitur to say, and therefore we need to take Robert E. Lee's name off of our schools. And the author, to his credit, recognizes that this bill does not bring about racial harmony and does not do a whole lot other than perhaps send a message. I do want to push back, though, a little bit, because I don't think Mr. Gallagher's question was answered. What you're doing here is more than, I'll use your phrase, a little nudge. This is a law. This isn't a resolution saying it's the sense of the legislature that no school should be named for Robert E. Lee or Jefferson Davis or some such leader of the Confederacy. That isn't what this is. This is more than a nudge. This is the heavy hand of the state saying to the locals, you shall do it our way. And I think that the idea that all of a sudden, for whatever reasons, a horrific killing in some other state has got our attention, I think it's also gotten the attention of the locals. And if we really did have respect for them, we would step back and say, okay, now that you're getting the wind, the feel of the winds around the country, what are you going to do about it, and give them an opportunity, perhaps with a little nudge or a resolution rather than a dictate from the state. And the slippery slope remains out there and completely unaddressed. Franklin Roosevelt signed the internment order. Earl Warren said, yeah, that's constitutional. What about Hugo Black, who was on the Supreme Court for many years, was a champion of the First Amendment, and got his start in politics as a member of the KKK? Does his name next come off of all of the buildings? Maybe it should. I don't know. But we need to recognize we are on a bit of a slippery slope. What do you do about John Tyler? John Tyler was a president of the United States and then got elected to Congress, the Congress of the Confederacy. Is he a sufficiently high leader? Does John Tyler's name, a president of the United States, now come off of all of these buildings? Where schools or streets or whatever they're on, I don't know where we stop. I'm not sure that this bill goes too far that it's not supportable, but at its heart, there's a sense here that perhaps a sentiment here that perhaps a legislature ought tread lightly and carefully.
Thank you.
So there.
Ms. Weber.
I want to thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. And I'm proud to be one of the co-authors on this bill, as well as the author of another bill that we'll see today. I think what happens in conversations like this, and having spent 40 years in development and writing and curriculum and teaching in Africana studies, comes obviously the ambivalence that many folks have around the Civil War itself, without recognition that those who participated in the Civil War were traitors. And we sometimes don't identify that because they were relatives and friends and aunts and uncles and cousins of people in the North. But yet they were people who were trying to destroy the country, which is a lot different than maybe a person who signs an order or who participates in some activity but still believes in the Union itself. In any other place probably in the world, they would be seen as traitors, as they should be seen here. We would not hopefully name a school after Benedict Arnold because we believe he was a traitor, and he doesn't have in our minds the rights to have anything named after him. That would be a symbol of excellence for our children and our families to participate in and to recognize. It's rather hard oftentimes, even African Americans have raised this issue for many, many years about the naming of things after members of the Confederacy, as well as the flag, the Confederate flag, and what it symbolized to so many. And yet others see it as a part of their heritage, which means a part of the right of states' rights. As we talk about local control, that's basically states' rights in the federal sense. And the fact that many did not want to give up the right to have control in their states as to who would be free and who would not be free. And so this is an ongoing challenge, an ongoing conversation that we have to have about our own ambivalence, about who the people were who participated in the Confederacy, who participated in the Civil War, whose goal was to divide the nation between the North and the South and to form two separate countries. And all of those things that were part of a piece of our history that even found its way in terms of the ambivalence expressed of those after the war, when we did see, once again, the U.S. government having some ambivalence about what the Civil War meant, who their relatives were, retreating from the rights and commitments they had made to those, developing separate but equal laws, and we can go on and on and on with the retrenchment of the initial commitment to end slavery and to accept African Americans as full participants in this country. So the history is fairly clear about it. The question is, what role do we play in history? And for me, I think it is important that we do look at this and understand that the Civil War period was not one that we should ever celebrate. It's not one that we should learn from it. It's not one that our children should actually see as a great part of American history, other than the victory to retain the Union and to eliminate slavery should be the part that we look at. But we should see this as we would see and look at people like Adolf Hitler. I doubt seriously if we'd put those symbols up, if we would celebrate that individual for what he meant to the world. And surely when I look at the Civil War, it's not something that I take with great pride. It's not something that I look at with great honor. As an American, I look at it as traitors to the country, to the mission, to the goals and objective as we were trying to become a more perfect union. And surely the retrenchment from that commitment afterwards is one, again, talks about a 100-year struggle for civil rights in this country from the beginning of the Emancipation Proclamation to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So it goes on, but I think in this time, in this place, the symbols have once again come up, and we've seen it in the most ugly way in terms of the recent killing of the 9. We see it in that ugly way that's there, but it's also been wrapped in so many other things in this country. So I think in California, we take pride in the fact that we were not the South in our minds, that we were not a part of the Civil War, that we can have a much more intellectual conversation about it, but it is real for those who have been a part of it, who live it, and I thank you for bringing this forward. It is going to be something that will be a challenge. It's a challenge in San Diego, as we have a Robert E. Lee and Ms. Gonzalez, who's trying to get that name removed from a school. It'll be a challenge to try to re-educate our population and our communities, but it's most important for the symbolism and for the messages and the lessons that our children will learn. And I respectfully thank you for that, and I hope my colleagues will give an aye vote to this matter.
Thank you. I'm still looking for a motion.
I move the bill.
Moved by Ms. Weber, seconded by Mr. Alejo. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. And I think on the issue, which is a valid one, about what the state does with respect to local jurisdictions, but I think the history shows that we've become numb to some of the symbols and some of the individuals, who they were, what they represented. And the more time that passes, that numbness leads to an inaction. And I think, if nothing else, this bill brings up a heightened awareness and will hopefully ask Californians to look a little bit deeper about what those symbols, what those individuals mean. And with that, I'll ask you to close.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I share your thoughts fully, and I ask the committee respectfully for an aye vote.
Thank you. So that motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. Call the roll, please.
Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner? Wagner, aye. Alejo? Alejo, aye. Chow? Chu?
Aye.
Chu, aye. Gallagher?
No.
Gallagher, no. Garcia?
Aye.
Garcia, aye. Weber?
Aye.
Weber, aye. Mainshine?
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Thurman?
That bill is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.